going to do a little clip on how to solder, and I think it's important that we all have a basic understanding of how to get the most out of soldering. So I've got a solder sucker, some good quality solder, bit of cable, and my motor that I've just taken out my car. And you can see on the screen here that there's already some solder left over from my previous attempts. So first things first, I'm going to switch my soldering iron on. This is I always recommend investing in a good soldering iron, really important. This one from Zen Racing, I think it's $59.99, absolutely fantastic soldering station. Set that at around 400. So we've got a decent temperature there. Now first things first, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of all of the solder from last time. I think this is this solder sucker. I'll pop the link in the description. Really important bit of kit so that you make sure you've got a nice clean joint. So I'm just going to heat the joint up, pop that in there, and it will suck away all the residue from the previous time I soldered. And you can see there's a decent amount of solder coming out from this joint here. That's great. Now I'll do it on the next one. So I'm just popping the soldering iron up against the joint. You can see each time pushing the nozzle down, pushing it up against the solder joint, and then sucking out all the solder. One more to go. And there we go. So now I've got a pretty clean joint there with no solder left over from last time. Just get a bit of a brush, brush it off, any leftovers, make sure it's nice and clean so I get a decent contact. And you can see there's quite a bit of crap that's come off of the joint there. I don't really want to be involved with the next time I solder my wires on. So that's the motor cleaned up, and obviously you can do that to whatever you're soldering to. Now I've got a bit of wire here. Just going to take the end off. Use a knife, just get a decent cut around the sleeve. So now I've got a naked bit of wire. Now what I want to do, I want to tin that. So what you might want to do is rest it onto something. Pop the soldering iron onto it, and then if you leave the iron on the end of the tip of the wire, and then just dab some solder onto the end just a little bit. As it heats up, it will go through all the strands of wire, so that then when you come to touch it onto your joint in a minute, it's going to make a really nice contact. That's great. So my wire now has a nice coating of solder around the tip. Because this has already been soldered, I've got a coating of solder around the joint as well. If this was a new motor, what I would do is, or a new joint, I would take my my knife, and I might just roughen up the contact point there, just so that when I come to pop some solder on it, it will take it a little easier. Again, what I might do, if it was the first time I'd soldered something in, I would pop the soldering iron on and I would dab some solder onto the joint, a bit like tinning the bit of wire there. So now this is all ready to pop on. So now I'm gonna just let it heat up just a touch, and at this point I don't want to go too crazy with how much solder I put on, because there's already some on the motor, there's already some on the wire. I just want to get a really nice finish on this. Fantastic. And there we go, a really nice clean joint, nice and firmly on there, not too much mess, and I've got some nice areas to solder my next two wires on. So that's a little video on how to get the most out of your soldering iron, some key components, a decent soldering iron, some decent solder, a nice cut on your wire, making sure that you tin the wire first, you tin the contact on whatever you're soldering to, then you pop the wire on, and make sure it gets a bit hot on, nice and hot, not too hot though, but get hot enough so it melts some solder on it. Drop a few lengths, I would say probably I'm going to be applying about that much solder onto that joint, so it's not a great deal. And you see so many people putting all of this solder on, you just don't need it. About this much here, watch to see it all coat the joint, and you're good to go. Hope that's been helpful. Like and share the post, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so that you know when we've posted another video, and look forward to seeing you all next time.
Because I'm here to give my heart to you.